that you're in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, because Neil, who's frankly, Elliot, the brains of the operation,
The
was
bar is
like,
very low.
that's fine. It's got 7
I
degrees
mean, we're
low.
dads. How high can it be, right?
Mhm.
Well,
Like,
and to your point, he's like, check out this stuff so you know what the hell's going on. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, oh yeah, this stuff totally tracks. But the cherry on now it is a banana split. When I think about you, your vibe, and what you're presenting, is that you are, in like the middle of America. P.S. I grew up in St. Louis, so I do have a deep down affinity for all things Midwest. It's
it,
kind and safe and wholesome, Neil.
yeah.
I don't know if they build them like that in North Jersey.
Well,
That's
I
where
was.
I'm from originally.
I was actually just saying how I lived in New York after college, and I made it about a year and a half, 2 years there. But as a kid from the Midwest, I grew up in Minneapolis. I kind of got chewed up and spit out a little bit on the East Coast, and it's not a bad thing. I think it's funny because in the Midwest we're so passive aggressive, and like we'll come to a four-way stop,
Really?
an intersection.
Uh-huh.
Oh no,
Oh.
you go. No, you go. No, no, no.
Yeah.
And we sit there, and it's like just someone effing go. On the East Coast, it's like, I'm going to go. I got here first, I'm going to go. And so, we all have, the Midwest nice is a positive, but it's also, it can be to a fault where you're, kind of so passive aggressive or, almost too kind, where I enjoy in the East Coast, you make your point. You get going and
You don't waste time. It's not BS. It's not that LA fakeness that I was, surrounded myself with for 20 years and then took with me, burning people left and right. It's so funny the way you describe it, like nice to a fault, reminds me of, I think, a series that's actually better than the original film, Fargo.
Okay, I love it. Yeah, a true classic, and a good representation of the Midwest and the Dakotas. I mean, North Dakota, South Dakotas. I mean, we like to, we're the better Dakota. But
Wait, I'm so curious about this. So I went to the Corn Palace. That's in
Yep,
South Dakota, right?
yeah,
Went
it's in Mitchell. It's where my wife's from. Yeah.
Family road trip. Never went to North Dakota, and way back in the day when I, probably mattered slightly more to Neil, I hosted a food travel show, and the Dakotas were one of those places on the map where I'm like, we're really getting close to the end of the series when they're like, I'm in Bismarck, hot dang. You know what I mean?
There's not a lot going on. I mean, they're giant states with a lot of flyover. Outside of agriculture production and farming, there isn't much going on. But it is a wonderful place. Sioux Falls is 200,000 people, so it's not tiny. I mean, like Mitchell, where the Corn Palace is 10,000. So it's a wonderful place to raise a family, and we talk about the dad life and all that. And like when I before I had kids, I was like, well, I moved here for a job at 25, and I was like, I'm going to be here for a year and then get back to Minneapolis or Denver.
Yeah.
And every year that I've been in Sioux Falls, I've started to love it more. And when we started to have kids in 2019, 2020, I realized that this is a wonderful place to raise a family where it's affordable. It's hard to buy a home in other cities in New York and wherever you may be in LA, but in Sioux Falls, we're able to have a nice home with a backyard. We have great schools a couple blocks away. I can work is 10 minutes away. It's like we have everything that you really need. Outside of maybe some of the culture, some of the arts, entertainment, diversity.
That's what the internet's for. I mean, there's all the streaming services now.
There are all the streaming services, and it's like, let's be honest, as a dad, like, how much am I really like, all right, see you, wife, I see you, kids, like, I'm going to the club tonight, like,
Some dads, yes. I've met them. I've met them. But these
And
are,
they're currently
we were,
divorced. Yeah.
before you hopped on, Ollie, before I clicked the old record button, we were talking about Bushwick and Greenpoint, where I am, and how it's changed over the last 15 years. And like,
Yeah.
there are certainly some the Williamsburg spillover came from Murray Hill.
Okay. Yeah.
And now they're in the high-rise buildings, and a lot of those guys, they like to party. We met some of them in the preschool experience, but now we're roughing it with the walk-up people.
Yeah.
People that, I like to say, like, that our friends from our neighborhood, they're like, yeah, I just, it was a crazy story how we got this apartment, and well, the sink is kind of in a weird place, versus like, my wife had, she was at the zoo, the Bronx Zoo, with our kids over the summer, and had like a tote bag with the school on it, our public school, local public school. And this mom came up to her and was like, "Oh my God, do you like it? We're thinking about it, but we're not zoned. Should we just buy a building in Greenpoint?" That's where we're at now.
Exactly.
Just like, yeah, I'll just buy a building.
Yeah, just 40 million down.
Okay, you're right. That is a lot more than private school.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
at least you can sell the property. I don't know. You know what it is?
You can rent. You can lease it. You can have tenants in there, and eventually make that back. So wait, what kid? I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old.
We're gonna do a proper intro.
We're gonna do proper intro.
No, but I want Elliot to run it now. This is a whole
hey,
new
let's
thing.
just
what?
all
He can
three of us.
interview us.
Can I just be a monthly co-host? Can I
Sure.
just get in?
Is this like I'm the co-host now.
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody get that?
Exactly. The vibes are just connected.
Wait.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, wait. I'm the captain. Wait, does he do that though?
He goes
doesn't do that.
to Tom Hanks. He's like, that was the trailer. That was like the clip that like they showed over and over and over. Was like,
But he does the eye
I'm the
thing.
captain now.
He does an eye
If he
thing.
doesn't do it,
doesn't.
he kind of says it with his.
I know I'm a captain now. Very big on the memes.
We're gonna fact
You know
check.
what? Look, we should do the intro
Do the
before we
intro,
go
please.
down the
Do the
rabbit
intro.
hole. Okay,
Alright,
great. We're
I gotta
gonna
do a
do
straight
that.
face.
Here we go. This is a fantastic picture, by the way. This is a dad picture right here. All right. Today's guest has become a standout voice in the online parenting space. After years working in social media and community building, Elliot launched The Husband Dad, a platform dedicated to celebrating fatherhood and giving parents a real, unfiltered look at the everyday wins and struggles of raising kids. Born and raised in Minneapolis, Elliot took an unexpected turn early toward the spotlight at the University of Oregon as the duck mascot, a role he embraced for all 4 years at college. After adventures in New York City and Montana, he eventually put down roots in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, where he works full-time as a social media manager at a tech company. Outside the office, you'll find Elliot on family adventures, exploring the outdoors or volunteering in the community with his wife Brittany and 2 boys, Beckett and Hayes. Elliot founded the Sioux Falls Stroll Club, creating a space for dads to connect, grow, and support one another in real life.
Let's
Ladies
go.
and gentlemen, please welcome Elliot Nathan to World's Greatest Dad, sort of in real life, but you're actually watching this on a screen.
And the crowd goes wild. Thanks,
Everyone
you guys.
likes to do that.
Thank you. First of all, thank you guys for having me. I'm honored to be here. I know how many awards you guys have won as the world's greatest podcast. So, not even dad podcast, just number one on my Spotify Wrapped. So, in all seriousness, I really appreciate being here, and I am aware and honored of what you guys are doing to give dads a voice, and I love that, and we need more of that. So it's not easy putting the podcast together, content, all that. So you guys are crushing it, and I'm thankful to be here and chat about dad life, parent life, and all that. So.
Oh my God! I think you just gave Neil
who'd
legs.
love to? I mean, we need to give our guests, more directives to kind of compliment us.
Yeah,
It's
right.
nice.
The payments under the table.
I'm honored that you're honored. I mean, we could just do this all day.
That's the Midwest. No, I'm. Yeah.
Oh God! 4-way stop. We're in a 4-way stop of kindness.
guy who grew up in New Jersey and now lives in Brooklyn, you know, we, as Ali was saying, we are the opposite of that. Like, four-way stop. Like, we're running red lights. Like,
Yeah.
like yellows. Hurry the fuck up. Gotta
Yeah.
get through it. Gotta make this light.
Yeah.
We have a lot of pedestrian deaths, though, so we can talk about
It
that.
happens. It's a
Yeah.
it's a casualty.
Okay, your kids are
That's true.
5 and 2. I believe there's a half in there.
Yes.
Beckett Hayes. I think I wrote you this, but why would you remember? I have a 7-year-old named Cece, second grade.
Yep.
I've got a kindergartner named Zeke, and Ollie's got a 14-year-old because he is old.
Like, how's
Yeah.
that possible if you're only 30? You must have had the kid at
Oh, there's a little
16.
gray right there.
Yeah.
I'm hiding the truth right now. Yeah,
I'm
no,
hiding my hairline. I mean, what do you want?
That's true. Well, you know, we won't even go there. But yeah, I will say this. I feel like this happens whenever I'm constantly meeting. Obviously, we have been lately talking to dads with kids that are fully grown. But whenever I talk to another dad and they're like, you know, kindergarten, 2, I'm just like, wait, what? I have to like rub my eyes and be like, wait, that was like, literally for me, that was like Obama's first term.
Yeah.
That was like,
Back when
I
things were
couldn't
good.
afford an iPad. I couldn't afford an iPad in 2011.
You can
I
now?
still can't.
Yeah, I was
Well,
gonna
they-
say.
The price has dropped.
Oh,
Yeah.
good. Well,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, the price.
I
That's what
actually bought
happened.
one, but it was like iOS 4, and you can't even do anything on it.
Facebook Marketplace? Was it a-
exactly. It was like
Oh.
$50 on the marketplace, and then I was like,
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah.
yeah,
I've never
yeah, but
thought
you
No,
of
can't.
it's not.
but
They
you
won't.
can't even.
They don't support the device. Neil.
There's nothing you can do with it outside of
Right.
like, you know, the photo, the camera, or like, you know.
Neil
the
made big
calculator.
TV money, so he probably never had a problem
Huge.
affording.
I
it.
was. I don't know
Bachelor,
if you know
right?
this.
That
I
was-
was a middling network executive on several cable networks no one's ever heard of.
Yeah.
That's not true. You ever heard of TBS? Turner, Ted Turner, kind of a big
Wow. Well, we look at this. We all have a connection.
Huh?
I started in local TV, working for the CBS affiliate, KELO in Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Oh my God,
As a-
that's my
as a-
favorite affiliate.
That's exactly.
Of the thousands
As the
across the
weekend
nation.
sports anchor.
deal. Oh,
You know,
serious?
earn-
What?
You
You
were
were a
like-
sports anchor?
Yep, earning $22,000 a year, working 60 hours a week.
Oh,
It was
that's tough.
it was an
That is so
experience.
interesting to me because that is like we've talked about this before. Like there was a guy I went to college with a couple of years older than me that was a baseball player, and he went to the minors. He went to play,
Yeah.
and everybody was like, "Oh wow, Randy Newsom's going to the minors," and it was like, "Well, it's not the majors, but oh wow, he's a professional ball player." And then you find out, yeah, they're making like 25, 30 grand a year, and they have to have other jobs, and it's like a very hard life on
It
the
was
road.
very,
Yeah.
very much. I mean, that's people's reaction when I say like, "Oh, I was in TV." It's similar to. They're like, "Wow, that's so cool! Like, what was that like?" And I was like, "Well, it was like, you know, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 4 to midnight. You know, driving around to different high school softball games and doing highlights, and then putting like and having to work a second job. It was a cool experience when you're younger." Again, same
Yeah.
with like the minors example. Like before you have responsibilities and a family, great to experience something like that, but not something that I think is a sustainable career unless you can, maybe make it to the majors, or you can make it to a, network station, or a primetime anchor spot or something. But even then, you're still working a lot of nights and weekends, and so.
Yeah.
But it was.
You're right. It's like even I always say that about like professional musicians. Not that like it's like yeah, that's why I'm not like a big rock star. But like no matter who you are, if you're Dave Matthews or Madonna or Pharrell or Bruno Mars or whoever, you could have all the money in the world. If you want to go like make promote your album, you're getting on the bus or you're getting on the jet,
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
there is no way around it. You have
And you're
to.
missing holidays. You're missing things. You're not. It's not like you're. Yeah. It's.
Yeah.
Especially
I think-
early in your career for the first 10, 20 years, right? Like I mean, obviously the really established musicians can kind of set their.
They can fly out their family. They can bring them
or whatever it is, but it's a grind,
their kids then end up having drug problems.
which sounds.
Right.
Or they
challenging.
don't have kids. I think what we're trying to say is Taylor Swift has it tough.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, she makes $1 billion, but she has to go to pick up the check. It's not mailed to her. It's
Yeah,
kind of true.
exactly.
It's
Oh, you
kind
don't?
of true.
Is that true? She doesn't have direct deposit? I didn't know that.
I
No,
think it's
it's
confirmed. I
it's
think TMZ
ironic.
dropped it today. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, because her
Well, I
dad
heard
worked in finance, and who
on
knew?
her last
Who doesn't
album,
know?
you know, now she's like, I want the house with the backyard, and it is a
In
struggle.
Sioux Falls, she said, right?
Exactly. It must
Yeah.
be, you know, she wants the driveway with the kids playing in it, and that's, I mean, you know, what would you rather have? You know, $1 billion or a driveway? So it's a tough.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's $1 billion isn't what it used to be anymore.
No, yeah, exactly.
Elliot, take us back about 5 years and 9 months. Not the exact date,
Very close.
but you know, let's take us back 5 years and 8 months, 7 months, when you guys are like, oh my God, you know, the stick, and you're like, it's happening. You are at a point, you've had a lot of career adventures, life adventures, and now you're going to be a dad. Everything's about to change. What was that like for you? Where were you geographically? Where were you mentally? What shifted? How quickly did it shift? Take us through all of it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a great question. So, I mean, when we first found out, I very much remember, you know, we were in our first home. It was a little 2-bedroom, 1-bath ranch style home, and yeah, I remember actually being from Minnesota. I was a big Vikings fan, and we were getting ready to watch the Vikings-Packers game with some friends, and my wife, like 10 minutes before we left, was like, I'm going to take this pregnancy test real quick. And then she was pregnant, and it was amazing. And I don't remember anything about the game or the rest of the day. I just remember us celebrating. But I think probably the most unique part of our pregnancy journey was that we had our first kid. Beckett was born 1 month, 2 months after the global pandemic started in May of 2020. So, you know, pandemic started, I think, March 2020, and the world really shut down initially. My wife's 8 months pregnant at that point, you know, and we're like, oh, okay, like this is kind of scary. And, you know, I love Sioux Falls, I love South Dakota, but our governor at the time, shout out Kristi Noem if you're listening, you know, was very anti-COVID and very much like, other states are shutting down. You guys should all come here. Come to our state. Like, we don't need masks. You know what? We'll give you a gun when you come here and a cowboy. And my wife and I were like, no, we don't want more people around us. Like, we're freaked out. So it was a hard time being. Sioux Falls is a very progressive, I would say, more liberal city, but the state as a whole is much more conservative. And we can go down the politics podcast at another time. But for us, it was a challenging point in that journey, just figuring out what we were going to do. You know, the hospitals, they weren't allowing guests in. You know, just one person could come in, just the husband. So, you know, May 27th, 2020, 2 months into the pandemic, we go to the hospital for our amazing pregnancy, and it was crazy. There was like, you know, hardly, the only people in there were people that were having babies or dying. Like, it wasn't really a, you know, joyful place. Not that the hospital is, but sometimes you can, you know, you have some conversation, interaction, whatever it may be. But that also correlated directly with the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis, about a mile from my parents' house, which happened on May 27th, 2020. So we were like, my wife had our child. It was amazing, beautiful. She's a boss. I mean, women, as cool as great and dads are, like, we'll never be what moms are, right? Like, we'll never touch these amazing women and their amazing pregnancy journey and everything. But, you know, we were going through COVID. We were watching, you know, these riots in Minneapolis. It was just like a very crazy time that, you know, in 20 years, my son, you know, or 10 years now, will come home from high school one day and be like, Dad, do you know what COVID is? Or do you know the name George Floyd? It happened on the day I was born. Or, you know, this, you know, it's just going to be it was kind of a, you know, very historic time where all these worlds were colliding. We were welcoming a child in, and these other global events were going on. But I would say, the next memory that I have is, I think it's funny. People, you get married, you buy a home, you get a new job, and people are like, wow, what's it like? What's changed? Now that you're married, how is it different? And it's like, it's not. We still, sit on opposite ends of the couch and doom scroll, or we still, I still go to work and do this and that. But the moment your child is put in the car seat, walked out of the hospital and put in the car, and you drive away, is like, my life does a 180-degree spin at that point, because, the previous 29 years really meant nothing, because now I'm responsible for this other human, and I'm driving down the road at 25 miles an hour with, our baby in the back. And it's just this, like, from that point forward, my life completely changed in the best way possible. And I'll always remember, the physical action of, like, putting the baby, in the car seat, or in the whatever, the bassinet, the carrier, whatever it's called, and you put in the car, and then, the nurse closes the door and is like, bye, and you're like, you're not coming with, but what do I do if they die? What, where do I, and it's just like, you just go. And so it's a little crazy that, like, we let anyone have a kid, and you don't need, like, a license or, like, a certification, because you just have this other human with you now. And but of course it was the biggest blessing of our life, and it was the most joy, and the best title, the best thing I could ever do was become a dad. And as you guys know, whether your kid is 1 year old or 14, that the last 5 years then have been a blur, where we've managed a lot of wins and a lot of losses. We've welcomed our second kid, Hayes, into the world 2 years ago, and he's an amazing little man too. So we have the two boys, but yeah, that was really our pregnancy journey and story. And we were very fortunate to be in this point. And we feel really lucky to have two amazing young kids. And spoiler, there's not a third one right now, but maybe in the follow-up podcast in a couple of years, we'll have another one. So who knows what that'll happen? But yeah,
That's
it was
something you can do in Sioux Falls.
Yeah, exactly. That would we don't have much going on, so we'll see if we get there. It requires there's a couple steps to get there, if you guys catch where I'm going with that. So.
Well, it's funny because I literally feel like, in my mind, in my world, and it's because it's what landed with us, when Neil said you can do that in Sioux Falls, I literally, that translated in my mind to, you can afford to have 3 kids. Like, yeah. Literally.
That is what I meant.
Yeah, like, I'll say it. Like, we tried for number 2, didn't happen. Yeah. Tried some medical science things, it wasn't working out. We didn't go way deep into the lab, if you will. We just kind of accepted it as is. P.S. I was living in a 900 square foot loft in downtown LA. I ended up in Austin because we couldn't stay in a loft with a kid in our current. It made as much sense to move halfway across the country, right?
100%.
And I literally think about, like, for a long time, and kind of true now, but you'd figure it out now. But just the idea of going, how do people afford multiple humans? Crazy. I might be in Sioux Falls. Shit, it's crazy. I don't care. I mean
that our daycare payment is more than our mortgage. I mean, our daycare payment is more than our mortgage. We pay, now our son just started kindergarten, so now it's less than that. But we were paying $3,000 a month in daycare, and like, that was the number. That's why we don't have a third right now, is because we could not afford to have another kid in daycare. And I mean, now we only have one, obviously, with our oldest in kindergarten. But it's like, I mean, and that doesn't, that's like a fraction of the cost. I mean, that's not a fraction of the cost. That's a large slice of the pie. But there's also ton of other costs, right, that come with kids. And I definitely have always, as you guys probably have too, but I think as a dad, you have to have that kind of hustler mindset where it's like we're going to do whatever we have to do to make it work. And that meant for me early on when our kid was really little, like having a second job for a couple years at a bakery, stocking shelves or doing whatever needs to get done. And I mean, I have a good career and a good full-time job that I've had for 10 years, but sometimes it does require, I think there's a part of a lot of any dad that's like, I'm gonna do whatever we have to do to make this work, whether it's a career change, a second job, maybe it's selling stuff on the secondary market, maybe it's selling illegal substances I don't know what you guys are up to, okay? I'm just here to say that you do what you have to do to make it work. Maybe it's but yeah, it's hard. It's hard, and it someone said to me recently, they said like the first 5 years are really expensive, 5 to 10 are a little less, and then 10 to 15 get really expensive with like sports and college savings and stuff like that. So I don't know, it kind of all feels expensive, but I guess that's what we signed up for, right? So
well, that's what we're trying to figure out. What did we sign up for here? I'll get back to you. Talk us through what kind of the inspiration was for starting Husband Dad and how that all came about.
Yeah, no, it's okay. So 2 years ago when we had our second kid, Hayes, I'm full-time social media manager at this tech company. So I'm on the socials all day, right? And now being the last couple years, as social continues to take off, we're using it more every day. We're connected to our devices, walking around like this. But I'm on the socials for work. I'm on it, when I have downtime at home. So 2 years ago, I realized like there's a lot of stay-at-home mom content, and there's not a lot of dad content. Like there's a lot of like female content, and the only dad content I'm seeing is moms making fun of dads for like, dad forgot the diaper, I'll run down the street and give it to him, or like a shot of a guy taking a nap and like dad wants to nap, and it's like he just worked a 60-hour blue-collar job, but and I was like, there was a couple accounts, like shout out like Dude Dad, I think he's been doing it for 10 years, and maybe 4 or 5, but I'm talking like 100 stay-at-home mom content, pages, and like 3 or 4 dad pages, and I was like, all right, I have this social background, so I know how to make content, I know what works, I know how to build social strategy, paid, organic, whatever it is, use all the platforms. I'm not going to toot my own horn and say I'm a funny guy, but have some creative ability. So I said, honey, babe, I'm gonna create a dad page, and we're gonna go all in on it, and I'm gonna post every day for a year and see what happens. And I believe that I can monetize it. I believe I can, be a part of, I can build a community. I believe that it can be a fun page to show off life. And, as every great wife does, she looks at me with this, love and support and says, you're an idiot. Don't do that. That's not going to work. Like I don't want to be involved. And I was like, thank you, babe. That means so much to me. So, that is the sign to go forward, right? When your wife or your loved ones doubt you, it means you probably have a good idea, right? So, no, she was, she was supportive once it started, taking off a little bit. But so I think, it was three prongs for me. Number one was that I realized there was a gap in the market where there wasn't a lot of voices for dads on social media. Secondary, I realized that there was nobody really advocating for what dads can do, right, in 2023, whatever, this year was. And what I mean by that specifically is that when I take my 2 kids out, I'm not babysitting or giving mom a break. I'm an active, involved parent who likes spending time with my boys. My father was in our life. He was present, but he wasn't taking us out on the stroller. He wasn't changing diapers. He wasn't doing those things. And now dads, and now being the last 4 or 5 years, are active, involved, they're there. And I think social media and, marketing, parenting companies don't reflect that. If you go into Target or Walmart, you go to the baby section, you're not going to see pictures of dads pushing the stroller or the dad with the beige toy. You're going to see the mom, and it's all marketed towards moms. Again, dads still get a bad rep of like the Homer Simpson, like I'm sitting in the back drinking beer, I don't know how to do anything. And it's like, that's not me and my friends. That's not anyone that I know. So secondarily, I wanted to be, it's, some of the content is obviously still self-deprecating about, dad fails and whatever it is, of course. But it's also like, that, dads can do this. And, dads are a 50%, at least in my household and many people that I know, where, I'm contributing 50%. We're never going to be as good as moms. Like, I'm not saying like, moms are crushing it. We're never going to be on that level, but we do deserve to have a seat at the table now. And I wanted husband, dad to represent that. And then, lastly, I think the last reason I wanted to start the page, and maybe this one's closest to my heart, is that I am, when you go meet new parents, I hear this conversation all the time. It's, they have toddlers or even teenagers or whatever. How's it going? How's parent life? And it's going great. He's sleeping through the night. Or my kids are so, it's so nice. And it's bullshit. And it's like nobody wants to say what everyone is experiencing. That my teenager kicked my ass at the dinner table today, or my toddler, was up all night screaming, because he wanted to come in our bed and I didn't, or I was arguing with my wife over, why you touched the monster truck when our kid told you to not touch the monster truck, but like whatever it is, these ridiculous arguments that happen all the time. But the reality of it is that parenting is hard. It's not easy. And, it's usually a lot of L's for one W. It's an hour of struggling to get out the door, to get their clothes on, to get in the car seat, whatever it is, for 20 minutes of fun at the park, and then it's a meltdown on the way home, and it's this or that, or and as they become teenagers, there's other challenges. But that the husband dad is meant to showcase that it's okay to not know what you're doing. It's okay to struggle, and let's bring some joy and laughter to social media and to parenting. And hopefully, there's another dad or another mom that is watching the content, and can say like thank you. Someone else gets it. Someone else understands. And I've seen that over the last 2 years that there's a lot of the feedback, a lot of the comments is like, thanks for saying what we were all thinking, or whatever it is. So I think that was kind of the reason why behind the page, and it's been a fun ride and a great journey where I've been fortunate enough to like I said, number one, make some people laugh, but also provide some secondary income for my family through brand deals and sponsorships and stuff like that. And it's not let's be real. There's no dreams of becoming an influencer or quitting my full-time job, or I'm making, $50,000 a year off it. But, if it's a couple $100 a month or $1,000 a month, that can be really helpful for a family. So I would say if anyone's out there considering their content journey, my recommendation would be true to yourself, find your lane, and just go for it. You got to send it. You got to be consistent, and give the algorithm a little TLC, and it will repay you over time. So yeah, it's been a cool journey, and I'm excited to see where 2026 goes and beyond. And I'm really excited for the day that my kid is like 14 and he's like, Dad, why did you put all these stupid videos of me on the internet that still are up here? And we need to discuss this. But no, it's been cool. It's a great page, and it's brought me to podcasts like this. So I'm really thankful for everything that it's given me, and yeah, excited to see where it goes.
How did you come up with the name Husband Dad? I mean, there's obviously, and I know there's Dude Dad was already taken.
Yeah,
I feel like there's an interesting POV that's inferred with that name. But how did you come up with that Husband Dad?
Yeah. I mean, I had a brainstorming meeting with myself and my wife, and I had like 10 names. And I was like, I wanted it to showcase both pieces, because we are as husbands and dads, we are half of my life is like okay, what do the kids need, how can I help my kids, but then the other half of my life is like, what's my wife and I shared calendar look like, what do we need to do, how can I help her, how can I not fuck up, how can I try to not annoy her more than I already do. So I wanted the page, I didn't want it to just be like husbands or just dads, and so I wanted to have a little bit of both, but honestly, it was for me I was ready to go. I wanted to start creating content, so it was like, let's come up with a name, let's make a quick logo, and let's get after it and go chase it. So but yeah, it's I guess it's stuck now. I'm not gonna, I guess I can't change it, but yeah,
That's the thing with names. We were watching, my wife and I often watch the Today Show in the morning.
Yes.
What are we, from Sioux Falls? We're in New York City, and people are like, "You watch that?" I'm like, yeah, we do. All right, we get our pop
news.
start.
Yeah.
Exactly. You get a little
Culture.
international breaking news, and you get a little steals and deals. Anyway, they had on this guy, and this is where I feel old. I'm sure you guys can relate. When the most popular musicians are performing, and you're like, who is this?
Yeah.
This guy, Role Model. His name is Role Model. And literally the Today Show staff was like, they do the concert series. They're like, how did you come up with the name? And he's like, I just thought it was funny. And then it just kind of took off. And now I guess I'm stuck with it. And it was like, oh my God, right. That's what happens. We can't change this podcast to Universe's Greatest Dad or World's Pretty Good Dad or,
No, you're locked in. And Post Malone has a funny story about that too. He put his name in a rap name generator, and it shot out Post Malone. It shot out a bunch of examples, but that was how, because I think his name is Austin Post, maybe is his full name or something, but you put in some things you like, and you put in basketball, so Karl Malone or something. I don't know what the connection there, what was you just I'm just have AI create a name, and then I guess I'm successful, or I guess I'm locked into this. But I think you guys picked a pretty good one as
thanks.
WGD.
That's right. I heard that's how Martin Estevez chose Sheen. He had a very early AI generator in the 1950s.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'm curious. I want to go back because this is such an interesting, we don't typically get this granular into the content side of it. But I'm actually really curious because it's something that we talk about, off pod and just in life in general. There's a market. Or I don't know if it's a market. There's a gap for dad content, and I wonder if that's. There's a gap for a reason, right? There was this guy, Matthew Iglesias, who wrote this kind of piece about, where are all the daddy blogs? There was all these mommy blogs, and obviously part of it probably came from women, almost the Tupperware parties or the MLMs. It's I want to find a way to assert myself and find my voice in a world, where corporate America is kind of dominated by men. And so, we've talked about this with some other dads, the Grill Dads, for instance, Ali, this idea of is dad content or like dad programming kind of seen as like women's work almost, that like, certainly you talked about being like a pale blue dot in a red state. Ollie's in Austin, in Texas, red Texas. I'm in New York, so I don't really count, but like, I see the trends, and I guess I'm curious your thoughts on like, uh, the how do you appeal to men who don't think it's cool or manly to like change a diaper or
Yeah.
gentle parent or uh make you know um breast milk, not make breast milk, what would you do? You would like, all right, Ollie, hey, it's been a minute, all right, I got a 5-year-old, I forgot. No, like, look, and I'm guilty of this too, right? And I think, not the breast milk part, but the like, oftentimes my wife will say to me, because I'm like you, I think I'm a pretty involved dad. I think I'm a pretty good dad. But like, my wife will lead the charge on a lot of things. Hey, did
Definitely.
you pay the class gift? Hey, we got to sign up for, spring activities. And then of course I'm like, oh yes, I'm on it. But, she will sometimes say, hey, I wish you were ahead of me on certain things. So like, I get that. And maybe we will get there. But how do you
It's
see, how do you appeal to these men who maybe would rather listen to Joe
yeah.
Rogan than like us?
Yeah, Neil, you hit the nail on the head. I think it's a deep answer. So I think like, I mean, the first thing I want to address is like, there is no fantasy or this ideal world where like I am gonna be a better parent than my wife. I mean, my wife works. She's worked in pediatric care for 10 years. So she is like a super knowledgeable, excellent mom and parent. So like I know that exactly she's gonna, she is on the school emails and she's involved in the PSA and she's gonna, or the PTA and like all of these things. And the best thing that I can do is stay in my lane and take care of the other things that I can do. So it's like, in our house, like I do all the cooking, all the financial, all the bills, the yard work, things like that. I mean, she likes to do yard work too, but like, we, like any couple, I think you're strongest when you're playing your own role, right? Like take the sports example, right? Like the wide receiver can't try to be the offensive lineman, and like vice versa, right? So like stay in your lane and let the running back run the ball and let the offensive lineman block. And if you're a lineman, that's your job. Don't try to do more or something outside of your reference. So I think there's a little bit of that where I understand that, I'm not going to be at that level, but I think that there is a middle ground where, it's not my responsibility to, shovel the snow 100% of the time. There's going to be times where I'm working and my wife needs to jump out there and maybe shovel, or vice versa, where like it's not my wife's responsibility to change the diapers all the time. If the kid has a blowout and you're sitting right there, go change the diaper, like be involved. Or if the sink's full of dishes, like it's not your wife's job to do it. Like just go do it. And I think a good relationship has that, where both partners understand their role, but they also understand, hey, I need to be flexible. I need to learn how I can help and take the initiative to be a better dad or a better mom by helping out my partner. So I think there's that piece of it, number one. But to answer your specific question, I would say the simplest, most direct answer is I actually don't. So if you look at my analytics, 70% of my audience is female. So I actually created this page to attract dads, but it's actually kind of had a reverse, not reverse effect, but I've actually connected with more moms. Now, part of that, if you get into Instagram and TikTok and the data, and moms are on their phone more, whether especially on social media, whether dads are working a blue collar job where he's not able to sit at a desk with his phone, or there's more stay at home moms, so they have their device, whatever it is, there's obviously reasons behind that, but the reality of it is that, I have a larger female demographic than I do male demo, which is okay and something that I think that I try to embrace. And when it comes to trying to attract that dad audience, or that new audience that might feel like it's not manly to do that, or whatever it is, I think it's for me, there's kind of two approaches. One, it's like I'm not going to spend any, I'm going to post what I think is funny and relatable in my life. And I'm not going to, if you start to play the game of like, what will this person think of it? And like, will they like it? And like, I don't know, is this brand going to be okay with it? Or like, you're just going to end up playing the moral compass game where you can't figure it out because it's okay with this person but doesn't fit in this group. So you just have to believe in yourself, create a strategy, create content that works, and follow that path and not worry about the outside noise, right? It's the same with the podcast. Like, you can't try to build it for 7 different audiences. You have to do what you think is best and then hope that there's people that can relate to it. And then the second part of that, I think, is like, if there's dads out there that are, on social media, or they think, oh, this is, you're lame for doing this, or, changing a diapers for the women. It's like, you're unfortunately, dad, you're stuck in 30 years ago. And those are the same people that, probably believe that women shouldn't vote. And it's probably stuck in a deeper, sexualized, or, racist, or, whatever it is. There is a deeper hatred for these individuals that they're using the dad being lame as a scapegoat, or they're hiding behind the dads or religion or whatever it is, when really they have their own issues that they're not willing to admit. They have their own challenges and hatred that they're battling, and I think that is probably their core issue, and they mask it with other types of behavior. But let's be real. Someone that acts that way, they have a far deeper challenge than not laughing at one of my posts. They need to probably do some self-reflection on, why are you acting this way? Why do you have hatred towards a certain group, or gender, religion, a race, whatever it may be? So, not to go super deep with you guys.
No, I listen, I think I know our time is limited. We could go very deep. We're going to have to bring you back to get into some of this stuff, because I'm fascinated by it, the kind of the gender, sexuality, politics of parenting and all that. But, it's interesting. I think so much of it is, like you said, like either a self-loathing, or, there's that whole thing of like, fellas, is it gay to hug your kids?
Exactly, man.
And that is so born from, we're all around the same.
I was just going to say that.
Era. No, I know. And you're like, can I say that? But obviously the joke is, we grew up in a homophobic culture. To a large extent, this is still a homophobic culture.
Exactly.
Holly knows this story, I think. My 6th grade girlfriend, who is now blocked on social media,
Smart.
went back and forth on politics for years. And it
in
ended
6th grade.
Yeah. We went back and forth on Instagram within the last couple years.
Yeah.
But it ended in a great story where we dated in 6th grade, and we stayed friendly, and she had a couple kids, and she lives in New Jersey. Anyway, she DM'd me. She was very, spoiler, pro-Trump.
Exactly.
And I was trying to be pretty respectful, more than I am of anonymous people online, because I knew her and I know her family. And she goes to me, you know what, Neil? My mother was right about you. And your wife's probably a lesbian too. And I was like, oh, she's calling me gay. And what I realized was, to 12-year-old, name redacted, that was such like the most cutting thing, and it would have really hurt me, and it probably would have hurt me even through my 20s and maybe some of my 30s. But I'm 40 now, and I was like, oh, you think I'm gay? I'm not, but I'm fine. Like, that's so sad that's the deepest you can cut. And I think for us, and so this is, I want to bring it back around. Like, I'm curious, do you think that, because we struggle with this, I struggle with this, like, the carrot or the stick. I think that part of what's making dads better is the shame factor of being like, oh, I'd be embarrassed not to be married to someone who doesn't change diapers. And that wasn't the case 30 years ago.
Yeah.
50 years ago, certainly. And certainly there's some dads who are like, still take pride in it. But if you're in Greenpoint, that's embarrassing to be a dad who doesn't do that, So
for sure.
I think we're trending and that we're heading in the right direction. But we definitely, Ollie's got a few more fun questions for you. And then we're going to go to our lightning round. How does that sound?
That sounds wonderful, Ollie. I'm excited to hear it. I want to say one piece, because you said that about like, yeah, is it fucking soft to be a gentle parent? And it's like, is that really, again, like, you grew up in a time, or we all grew up in a time where it was like, if you mess up, go put your nose in your room and stay there for a week. You're grounded, and don't talk to me. Don't talk about your feelings. And now, over the last decades, it's not Elliot's opinion or, the World's Greatest Dad podcast opinion. It's scientific fact and development that kids don't, doing that messes up kids emotionally, and their brain is not ready for a 4-year-old to be yelled at, and put in the corner, and when he's upset at the store over the fruit roll-up, to say, shut up, get in the car, and, do that. Like, that's not appropriate. It's developmentally not okay. It hurts their growth. And people that are, not aware of that research or understanding, that's a challenge that they have to overcome. And I will caveat that by saying, like, gentle parenting kicks my ass all the time. And I'm like, why are we, like, I've seen some really funny reels of people like, they're like, okay, like the kid kicks them in the leg and they're like, I can see that you're feeling upset. Like, can you, let's put you in the safe bubble. They're like at Costco or something, and and it's like, and the kid's like, shut up, mom. And it's like, wow, those are big words, can you try to pick and it's like, yes, there is a line where, if my kid, hitting screen, there's a certain line where you do need to have, kids also need discipline. You need to be strict. You need to have rules. They crave structure and guidance. So, we do, maybe the pendulum has now swung, a little too far to the gentle parenting side. So we are aware of that. And my wife and I try to balance out old school parenting or, Republican parenting with super liberal parenting and try to find a middle ground. I think that is important.
Well, it's so funny. And we've talked about, I don't know if you're familiar with this trend of type C parenting, which Ollie is like, yeah, isn't that just parenting? Like,
yes.
Sometimes you're harsh, sometimes you're not. Like, that's life.
Exactly.
I think it's funny because, like, I find those videos very funny, but I understand they're hyperbolic for a reason. Making fun of gentle parenting. I think it's people who operate in the black and white and don't live in the gray, because the reality, I think, is the point, if you're doing it correctly, is not that you're never going to yell at your kids. It's not that you're never going to lose your shit or not handle things perfectly. It's that, like, it shouldn't be your first reaction, and I think, like, we've had dads on here before who say, and I can relate to this, it's like, yeah, I screamed because I asked you 5 times and you ignored me.
Exactly.
And I'm a person and I reacted and I was really frustrated. And, I think that's normal. Does that mean you're not a gentle parent? Because I do know parents who pride themselves on, saying, well, we've never yelled at our kids. And I'm like, never?
Yeah.
Never? Either you're lying or maybe your kid needs to be yelled at once. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Because, and my wife likes to tease me because she always says, like, if I was on trial for murder, my mother would say, why'd they make you do it? And I think you need a love with accountability. You need people saying, I don't support that behavior, but I'm here to kind of catch you when you fall. We don't support murder on this podcast. I just want to make that clear, despite my mother probably going to the mat for me if I committed that act.
My mom is the exact same way, and I think you summed it up perfectly, where, it doesn't need to be the first reaction. You need to have a balance, and with anything in life, and not to summarize all of this, but that, political, we could all learn from being in the middle a little bit more and listening to both sides and blending our actions and behaviors instead of, being so divisive, so stuck on one side and slamming the keyboard on Facebook when someone doesn't agree with you. So I'll pass the mic on that one.
Ollie, what do you got?
And that's why when I choose ice, I used crushed ice because it melts faster. Let's talk about being the Duck mascot, and I'd like to clarify the years you were there, and I asked that because I went to the University of Southern California. Thank you for taking over my pride and joy, Elliot.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, 2006 to 2010. So this is the still like heyday of US. I mean, like, you were early 2000s when you were like, really dominant, obviously the Reggie Bush and Liner days and all that. But like, you were still good, but Oregon kind of took the throne there for a little bit. But this is, the Dennis Dixon days, LaMichael James. Before, my last year was right before Marcus Mariota got there. So I got to kind of see the rise of Duck football into what's a national brand now, definitely in a national contender. But back then it was a little more, just like anything was 20 years ago. But it wasn't. It was a little more, lighthearted and not as strict and powerful maybe as it is now. So
in some ways, you had an early hand in this current era of the Duck dynasty.
Oh, definitely. We were, we like to think. I mean, it was these years that the Duck became a national kind of icon and brand and started doing, ESPN commercials, Capital One commercials, all of these things. And I think it directly, it correlated directly with the rise of Oregon athletics, right? Like, I mean, the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers have a great mascot. Shout out Big Red. Throw him in the Google if you search, if you're not sure who Big Red is. He kind of looks like Grimace from the McDonald's commercials, but he's red. But, no one would know him because it's Western Kentucky and they don't have amazing athletics. So you have to have both, right? You have to have a cool, unique mascot, but you have to have good athletic programs. But it was a amazing experience. I got to travel up and down the West Coast, went to every Pac-10 school, Arizona, Southern Cal, LA, Berkeley, up to the Palouse in Pullman, Washington, Washington State. And it was, it was just an amazing experience and everything that you could imagine being 19 years old and being part of the cheerleading team at the University of Oregon as well. So we practiced with the cheerleaders, we traveled with the cheerleaders. So that was not a bad thing. Now, I was, 5'4" and, not the most attractive guy. So I definitely wasn't getting additional looks as a giant waterfowl. But it was a fun experience and something that I, kind of look back on with a lot of smiles and good times.
We're going to pivot really quick to another IRL experience. We've talked a lot about being digital dads. But what's it like with the Sioux Falls Dad Stroll Club? Tell us about kind of its genesis and how many dads are joining you and what that's all been like.
Yeah, no, it's been really cool. So shout out to Brooklyn Stroll Club, which maybe you've seen, Neil, or have you been to an event?
I haven't. We're familiar with it. Follow their work, big fans. My kids are older, and so we have
they're not in the
strollers sitting downstairs collecting dust that I do need to put on the Facebook Marketplace at some point. And so I'd be a little bit out of my depth with people with it seems like a lot of dads with 1-year-olds. But
it very, very much. But I saw Joe Gonzalez, I think, was the guy that started it. It was maybe October 23 or October 24, I don't know, a little over a year ago. He started it and in Brooklyn, and I was like this is cool, man. Like, I could definitely do this in Sioux Falls. And so April of this year, I started the Sioux Falls Stroll Club, and I knew 0 dads in Sioux Falls. All my friends are in Minneapolis. And my dad friends are in Minneapolis, and that was also part of it too. I was like, this is a cool thing, but also like I don't know any dads, so like this could kind of connect. And so I texted my wife's college roommate, best friend, her husband. They live in Sioux Falls, so my wife's her family friends, but like I know him through my wife's connection, and we've hung out a couple times. And I said like, hey man, like I'm starting this stroll club. I don't know anyone. You need to show up because it's just gonna be me. And and he was like, yeah, dude, I'll be there. And so I had him and my neighbor at the first event in April. And the whole premise basically is if audience or people are not familiar, we meet once a month at a park in Sioux Falls, and we do a walk. We have coffee, donuts, talk about parenting, spend some time with the kids, and it's once a month. We meet for 1 hour, and it's just about building community through fatherhood and getting to know some dads in your area or in Sioux Falls here. But first event was April. I had 2 other dads, and just like kind of the husband dad, consistency, I believe, is the key to everything in life. I'll give you a quick, great quote that, you don't have to be, this is from Tom Brady, who I'm not the biggest Tom Brady guy, but, he said at his Hall of Fame speech, he said, I wasn't the best player. I just showed up every day and worked really hard. I was the most consistent. And I think about that in my life where I was just, I don't have the coolest stroll club or the coolest story or the best equipment or this, but, I said, I'm going to do this every month. I'm going to show up. We're going to do an event. I'm going to be on social media. I'm going to promote it. I'm going to get it out there. And, with that consistency, I've grown it from two dads the first month, the first event in April, 4 dads the next month, etc. The last event in November, we had 30 dads and like 60 people there, with kids and everything. And we have a number of sponsors. We have Flyboy Donuts, Coffee Shop, Shields, a giant sports retailer here in Sioux Falls. So the community has kind of got behind it, and we've got a lot of dads involved, and it's been really cool to see. And I've had a couple of dads come up to me at events and just say like, I'm going through a lot right now. I just got divorced and I don't have really much going on in my life, and this event was a chance to bring some joy to me and my son's life, and to give us something to do and something to look forward to. And we had such a great time, and thank you. And like that was so eye-opening for me. Was like, it's one of those cliche things where you're like, I'm trying to help other people, but other people just impacted me. So it was kind of a cool moment for me. And yeah, it's great. We're going to continue to grow in 26, hopefully, or we'll go backwards. We'll see. But either way, we'll keep showing up every month and doing it. And yeah, exactly. That's really what it is. And honestly, too, we've kind of expanded the idea of stroll, because my 5-year-old does not sit in a stroller. So I've told people like, bring your bike, bring your scooter, bring your skateboard. You can just walk too. It doesn't have to be a stroll club, but there's a nice alliteration, wordplay with the Sioux Falls.
I do like that, yeah.
Club. So
and I also want to say, per capita, those are some big numbers. And,
sure.
It's a real unfair comparison to New York City, which has, literally 8 million people. So, I think you're on par. I think you're competing pretty well with those numbers.
No, I think like Brooklyn, I think they had like 100 people at their last event. So, quick math, 100 of 8 million versus 30 of 200,000. We'll call it the same. So, no, it's been cool, and I definitely I enjoy doing it. And my wife says I have too much on my plate, and I say you're right, because you always are, honey.
All right, Elliot, one last question, and we're going to go jump right into the lightning round. But this one is a bit profound, but let's see how you can zip it to us. What do you want your kids to say about you 20 years from now?
Oh, I love this, guys. I feel like we've really went beneath the surface, so I'm just going to stay consistent with that. My father is a wonderful man who was very present in my life. I did not have a amazing relationship with him. He was not my best friend. my parents were both artists, and my dad, could not hit water if he fell out of a boat. Like, he didn't play sports for the life of him. And I love sports. I grew up playing everything. I worked in sports. I still love sports. And, my dad was an artist, and he probably really wanted me to put down the baseball and pick up a paintbrush and come downstairs in his studio and paint with him. But we never connected on that. And because of that, we never formed a really great relationship. Again, like, I had loving, amazing parents. I had a great upbringing. I'm so lucky. I'm still close to my parents to this day. But I never had a best friend, and I never had someone that I could play sports with. And, and that was a big passion for me. So what I want for my kids in 20 years, I want my son to be able to call me and say, and really talk about anything. Parents always say that, like, you can call me if you get in trouble, but, like, it's not like that. Like, really like you call a best friend, or you text a best friend, little things, updates. I think about the sports example of, the 24-year-old athlete who just, won the World Cup, and they interview him, and he said, they say, how did you do it? How did you score that goal? And he says, it's because of my dad and playing with him. And, like, that is, all the times we played together. And, like, so that's really what I want, is to have my son, and it doesn't have to be sports. Like, if my kid's like, Dad, I really want to do piano, then I want to do piano with him every day and have that. It doesn't, he does love sports, but it can be whatever he wants it to be. But I want to commit myself to being connected with my kids through their passion. And I hope it's sports, because I'm good at that. But I believe that, doing that, putting that time in whatever it is, will really grow our relationship and connect us and become, beyond father and son, and become best friends. So I really hope in 20 years, when my son's 25 and my other little dude is 22, that they feel like, their dad is their best friend, and understands them, understands what they're passionate about, but, more than just understands, participates with them in it, and is the reason why they had success. And, I really hope that I can be there in that way, and that they look back on me and they remember, all those times when they were, a kid, and I was playing with them and staying up late throwing the ball, or playing the piano or the guitar or whatever it is. So it's been a very deep process. You can see I'm a little emotional, because I've had to learn this through counseling and through, therapy, my relationship with my dad, how that has affected me as a parent, as a spouse, as a partner, and how I want to give my kids a different kind of, outcome. And again, it's not to say, like, I struggled as a kid, or like I had great, loving, amazing parents. But what I want for my kids in 20 years is something even deeper and more meaningful than what I had.
Well said.
All right, Elliot, are you ready to play the Dad Lightning Round?
Yeah, let me just... Okay, I'm good. I'm ready now.
All right, here we go. All right. Number 1, pick a superpower. Super strength or super speed?
It's got to be super speed. I feel like as a dad, I'm always running late.
Parenting advice in 5 words or less.
Don't argue. Just let it go.
Speaks to the ages of your kids. Coffee or Red Bull?
Yeah, definitely coffee.
Favorite kids TV show?
Ooh, I'm going to go Curious George. That was one that I grew up with, and our kids still watch. My kids' favorite show for the little one might be Blippi right now, so
okay.
We're working through it.
Greatest TV dad of all time?
Oh, I'm gonna have to go with Mr. Incredible, the dad from I don't know his name. Shout out to him.
The Incredibles.
The Incredibles, yeah.
Yeah. That's a good choice. Greatest actual dad of all time.
I I'm gonna go. Yeah, it's a lightning round. I'm stuck. I'm gonna go with Ollie and Neil.
Whoa, that's a first. Wow.
I've never seen you guys as dads, but we can edit that.
Yeah, I know. There's a big question mark there, but I like that. One book every dad should read.
Yeah. One book every dad should read would probably be one on how to be a better partner to your wife. So a marriage counseling book is probably going to make you the best dad possible.
I like that. Very true. Very, very true. Album you can't wait to share with your kids.
Oh, that's a good question. Album I can't wait to share with my kids. I'm going to go Sam Cooke Greatest Hits. It's one that we play a lot, but I think my kids will fully understand it when they get a little older.
Dream dinner guest, dead or alive?
Let's go Kobe. Just because I feel like he has a lot of knowledge and insight, and shout out girl dads. He was crushing it as a dad. So
facts. Favorite movie to watch with your kids?
Anything Pixar. Man, Pixar just crushes it. Like Coco. There's Luca, Toy Story. I could just talk for hours about how Pixar hits every genre and they're just great movies for kids and adults.
They did change the game. You've got a time machine for 24 hours. Where are you going?
I think I'm going back to 1998, and I am 11 years old, and I'm gonna ask my parents. I'm gonna ask my dad to play soccer with me outside.
Wow, that's wow, that's amazing. And Elliot, finally, last question of the Dad Lightning Round. What is the best part about being a dad?
Oh man, it's the little moments for sure. It's the like I said, it's the little slice of wins in between chaos, right? It's a long crazy day, and your kid says something to you just that was so much fun, Dad, or just something really small like that makes all the other challenges of marriage and parenting worth it. To see your kids happy in that moment is definitely the best part.
Neil, take us home.
Elliot Nathan, you are the world's greatest dad. Thanks for being here, buddy.
We did it. Hey, thank you guys so much, man. That was amazing. We're still recording.